It's a moment those following the investigation of Benghazi have been waiting for since the attack in 2012. Survivors telling their stories to Congress. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge on how the testimony matches up with the White House narrative.
Behind closed doors on Capitol Hill, the 5 CIA personnel, including former government contractors on the ground in Benghazi, answered questions in 2 classified sessions. The congressman who leads the subcommittee on investigations confirmed the witnesses are offering new information that conflicts with earlier testimony.
There are some discrepancies, and so we're running everything that we can to ground.
Sources tell Fox News the witnesses reinforce the view that State Department personnel were ill-equipped to deal with the assault. And more significantly, some of the contractors characterized the fighting that night as consistent and constant, rather than 2 attacks punctuated by a 7-hour lull, which again raises questions about the lack of a military response. In addition to the 4 Americans killed, Fox News has learned that one of the contractors testifying this week was so severely injured during the mortar attack at the CIA annex that he has not regained the full use of his arm despite multiple surgeries. And diplomatic security agent David Ubben has also undergone multiple surgeries for a severely injured leg. The procedure is known as a limb salvage. Fox News is not publishing Ubben's photo in full out of respect for his privacy and recovery. Congressman Bill Young met with Ubben for 90 minutes last summer when both were patients at Walter Reed Medical Center. Young originally spoke to Fox on background, but after his death, Young's widow gave us permission to broadcast the audio interview about the terrorist attack.
They emphasized the fact that it was a very, very military-type operation. They had knowledge of almost everything in the compound. They knew where the gasoline was. They knew where the generators were. They knew where the safe room was. They knew more than they should have about that compound.
At a separate hearing today, FBI Director James Comey told senators that he is not opposed to Congress speaking with the Benghazi survivors, which does appear to contradict the administration's position that the interviews could derail the criminal cases. Chris.
Catherine, thank you. For more on the Benghazi investigation, we turn now to California Congressman Republican Devin Nunes. Good evening, Congressman. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
The Intelligence Committee, you're part of it, you were part of the hearing, spent hours yesterday and today with 5 either current or former CIA employees, contractors, operatives. I understand that these hearings were classified, but did you learn anything that substantially changes your understanding of what went on in Benghazi that night?
Yes, there are definitely discrepancies. And I will say this, that it's important, I think, for everyone, for the American people to understand, these guys are American heroes, and they should be treated that way. And my opinion is they have not been treated as American heroes.
Now, we're going to get to that in just a moment. When you say that there are discrepancies, and again, to the degree that you can tell us, if not the specific discrepancies, the areas in which there are discrepancies from the White House narrative.
Well, look, this is real simple. I sent a letter last week to Speaker Boehner that outlined 9 questions that I want answers to. If you answer those 9 questions, this goes away. It's that simple. Answer the 9 questions that I sent, because now we have conflicting testimony on those questions.
Give me an example.
For example, what the FEST team, were they called in? Were they not? Were there calls
now,
for
what
air
is
support?
The FEST team?
It's the State Department counterterrorism team. Were calls made for air support, or were they not?
Let me ask you about one specific. And this also ties into the question of could we have gotten there in time. There's a widespread impression, I think it's fair to say, and Catherine referred to it in her story, that this attack came in 2 ways. There was a big, savage attack that killed 2 Americans at the consulate, then there was a lull of several hours, and then a second firefight that killed 2 more Americans at the CIA annex. Is that your impression now of what happened, that there were these 2 separate attacks with an hours-long lull in between?
Well, there is conflicting testimony, and I will tell you this, that I believe the survivors.
And the survivors tell you what? That it was more constant?
I don't think it ever stopped.
Which raises the question, of course, if you think there was just one attack and then it stopped, then that would help foster the argument, well, they thought it was over, so you don't need to send in backups. If it was continuing, then it does raise more questions about why didn't they scramble to get somebody there.
That is correct.
And
right.
Have you got a satisfactory answer to that?
No, I do not.
All right. You talked earlier about the fact that these are American heroes and they're not being treated as such. This question that is out there about witness intimidation. Were any U.S. officials, contractors, any American either forced or required to have a polygraph test or to sign a non-disclosure form?
Well, I can tell you that the polygraph issue, there are other news organizations that stand by their report. As it relates to non-disclosure forms, the CIA director has been very clear that no forms were signed. I don't think that's true. And I just think it's offensive for me as a member of Congress and somebody who watches over the Intelligence Committee and the community to treat these survivors this way, who, if it wasn't for them, almost everyone would have been killed.
Now, you mentioned the fact that you have reached out to Speaker Boehner. In fact, you sent a letter to him a couple of weeks ago in which you called, and we point out, you're a member of the House Intelligence Committee, but you called for the appointment of an independent investigator to pursue this.
If they don't answer the 9 questions. So if they want to answer the 9 bullet points that I put in my letter,
they being the administration.
The administration, this all goes away. So just answer the questions.
But they haven't done it for 14 months, sir.
That's right.
So why do you think you need an independent investigator instead of the Intelligence Committee that you're a part of?
If we cannot get, well, all of these are not in the jurisdiction of the Intelligence Committee. That's first off. We don't have jurisdiction over the State Department, for example, and a lot of questions remain there. So so we need to take all the committee work if we can't get the answers and have an independent investigator if we can't get these.
Now, as I say, you sent a letter to House Speaker Boehner 2 weeks ago. Have you gotten any kind of a response?
Yeah, I've talked to the Speaker numerous times about this, and the Speaker wants the truth to come out.
And what does he think of the idea of an independent investigator?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak for the Speaker, but the Speaker is very clear that he wants the truth out. That we owe it to the 4 dead Americans, and we owe it to the survivors who were injured, and we owe it to future intel officials and security folks who will be on the ground and who are on the ground today and all over the world.
And very briefly, does he at least entertain the possibility you may have to do that outside of the normal committee function?
Look, I believe that the Intelligence Committee can get most of these answers, but we may have to pull in jurisdictions from other committees in order to get all the answers. If the easiest way is for the administration to give us the answers.
Congressman Nunes, thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.